going to ask the question that everyone came to see or hear is who the fuck is Pledge?
Well, that's depending on when you ask the question is what really matters.
Okay.
Because we'll start from the very beginning. Some people know me as the first support team lead and the greatest support team lead. Sorry,
Okay.
everyone else. But also the man who has successfully pulled off 3 APD coups. I'm undefeated. Tried to coup me. Shout out to Aries. You couldn't do it. But also the world's shittiest senior developer and washed up, no aim brain player. So
Okay. Fair enough. So the undefeated. That's the boldest statement. So we'll start with that.
All right. So going back to the beginning, right? I joined the APD like long time ago. But from senior APD, I have been involved in the coups of GOAT the first time, which was a long story. That's one that I wish I could take back.
Right.
I wasn't the one who started that though. Just making that clear.
Okay.
Just looking at you, GOAT, out there. It wasn't me. But then also after that, there was obviously like ChrisGG, Sandman, both of which I was present for. And then Aries tried to coup me on a fun night, in which he offered my job to a lieutenant and 2 deputy chiefs, all of whom said no. So
they had your back.
Yeah, no, that was my proudest moment as chief, was when Aries pulled in Hawk into the channel, who was my deputy chief at the time, and was like, hey, would you want to be chief? And Hawk's like, yeah, I'd love to be chief. And he's like, well, if you un-blacklist DeadPooL, I will make you chief instead of Pledge. And Hawk was like, get the fuck out of here, and just left. I was like, that guy, like, he's got my back. I was like, I made a good pick.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, no, that was the proudest moment of my time on the senior APD, was just having my job shopped around to my deputy chiefs at the time and them saying, no, I'm good, thanks.
So who else did he try to give it to?
And I think he pulled in an LT too, and I want to say that it was Airborne, but I can't remember which LT it was. The LT was like, no.
Right, yeah.
Because that was, Aries had made some comments about, the senior APD is replaceable, but the owner is not. And he was talking about like, oh, I'm just going to instate the entire staff to run the APD because, the APD is useless. And then, it came down to like DeadPooL had been blacklisted like 17 times from the APD.
Holy shit,
I don't even,
really?
Yeah, he's got a story history. But
I didn't know. So I wasn't aware that I had been that many times. I thought it was maybe 1 or 2. And it was just that was the final straw. So I had been 17, and then y'all were finally
it's not actually 17, but it's he's been blacklisted a good amount of times, 3 or 4 at least.
Okay.
Removed more than that.
Okay.
And I'll say this: there's one maybe he didn't deserve. The other ones he definitely deserved.
Okay.
And this time I can't even remember what it was he had done, but basically
it had to do with ChrisGG, right?
Oh yes, this was the one where he said some things to ChrisGG. And we were like, okay, you know what? And Aries was like, come on, you need to consider this. You need to. And I'm like, do I though? And so we brought him into the senior APD meeting, and we're like, all right, can you apologize to Chris? And he wouldn't do it. And I was like, no, I'm not un-blacklisting you. And then Aries after that meeting is like, well, you're gonna. And no. So that was fun. Because DeadPooL got very upset because he thought he was apologizing, but all of his excuses were like, I'm sorry that I said this, but in the situation it was justified because of X or Y reason.
Right. Yeah.
And like,
what's interesting is I think in at least one other interview, if not 2 other interviews, that meeting between Aries and his senior APD has been brought up. So what was so legendary and memorable about that meeting that y'all had that makes it something that has been brought up 3 times now?
So leading up to this meeting, there's a lot of context to understand going forward, which is the staff has always had like a kind of a back and forth relationship with the APD, as I'm sure everyone here knows. You get that like beginning bit where the staff was really close together at the APD and everything was nice and peachy, and then kind of started splitting around when GOAT was chief the first time, and then there was some real back and forth, some arguing, and then it kind of healed a bit when Rex and Dante were chief, and then back when I got chief, there were some staff members who started taking aim at some of my seniors. They were asking for perks that they got, and then they would abuse them, so we had to take them away. And then they got upset about them losing their perks. They started taking shots at us, talking about like how we're not qualified. like they'd be trying to like change rules on us to make it look like we broke something.
Right.
And that was not cool. So there was a lot of this pressure going back and forth. And a lot of times it was the staff that was starting it.
Right.
Because I had specifically told my seniors, like, I don't want trouble with the staff right now.
Yeah.
And so Aries was
And were you staff at this time?
I was not at this time.
Okay.
This was after my first stint. But
okay,
because I'm of a believer that the chief of police should not be staff.
Really? Okay.
Because there's some conversations you need to have that are really hard to have if you're a staff member. Like you need to be able to go to the chief and have a conversation about the APD and have them fight for something that may not line up with what they have to do as a staff member.
Right.
Like if I'm in that same situation that I'm talking about with Aries and I'm a staff member, I'm not just scared that I'm losing chief. I'm losing like my staff ranks on the line.
Right. Yeah.
It's like just being able to stand there and like spit in Aries' face, I guess, was great.
Yeah.
But going to that meeting, there was just a lot of tension between the staff and the ownership, and Aries was not doing so hot as an owner at the time.
Right. That's something everyone has said. That's something that everyone agrees on. From at least that's come to talk to me about it. So,
yeah, there was some rough moments. Like I said, mentioning he could replace the entire senior APD at the drop of a hat if we didn't do what he wanted. He would famously just not pay attention during meetings and then just like flip a coin to decide things.
Really?
Yeah, like serious balance changes would flip a coin.
Like legitimately, you hear coin flipping?
Yeah, would legitimately say heads or tails.
Oh wow.
So that was great. And so the senior APD was not enjoying that, especially because this was when like the whole Blackwaters were really popular and we were really trying to get some balance because we were like losing 80% of them.
Yeah. I think that from what I understand, at that time there was a decent amount of staff members who were also fed up. Would you say that's true? At that point, it was almost like staff versus APD, but then staff also was kind of like
staff
deciding
also.
Not to like Aries.
Exactly. Okay. And so Aries had come into this meeting and was like, you're going to do my bidding.
Right.
Because I like DeadPooL and I think he deserves a chance. And so you're going to do that for me. And we were not on the level with that. We were not okay. And so that devolved into a shouting match between Panda, as I'm sure you've heard, and Aries, in which Panda was going at Aries and I, being the chief of police, was like, whoa, Panda, stop. But like, don't.
Nah, yeah. That's funny. He said the same thing.
So Aries was like, you know what? All right, whatever. I'm not doing this, and like stormed out of our meeting. And then like later pulled me in and was like, you're gonna do this because I said so.
Really?
And like I had always thought like, because I know probably before you were on the server, like Goat had issues where he would talk to staff and he'd be like, you're gonna do this. Even before that, like Moob had issues similarly, and it's just like every chief has that, like, I guess the come to Jesus moment where you're like, no, I won't. And I was just, like I said, it was the proudest moment of my APD career when they pulled in my deputy chief and he was like, nope, go fuck yourself.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what happened after kind of all of that went down? Like, what was the next day like? What was the changes that happened thereafter, like, in response to that meeting?
So like after that, like we basically at that point I was like, okay, I know there's no working with the staff to get this done.
Right.
We have to find ways to operate within our own handbook to fix issues and like not deal with this. And luckily, fortunately, I didn't have to deal with it for too long because that Aries lost ownership, sold the server in the middle of my chiefship.
Right.
But like that was what led to, if you're familiar with like the deputies being neutralized thing.
Yeah, I remember that happened.
I was like, I can't put anything in the server rules, or I can't get them to pass balance changes.
Right.
How am I going to do this? So we ended up like looking at these problems and kind of sitting down and trying to solve things differently.
Right.
Funny story about kind of similar to that is like during one of these feds during this time, Aries hopped on to prove to us that the fed was balanced. And Aries got milked for 7 minutes as the last one alive. And like the entire senior APD was roasting the shit out of them.
That's actually insane. I didn't know that.
Yeah, because like I wouldn't say that I'm particularly good at Arma. Like I'm mediocre. Occasionally I'll hit some good shots, like, but people make fun of me because on stream all the time I'm like not using combat stance or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
I even
you don't care for it that much anymore, I assume.
I have like 100 hours on Civ, like 150, and I have
really,
and I have like 1200 on Cop.
I'm the exact opposite.
So I never got like the cartel fighting experience or anything like that.
Right.
So all my experience was coming as cop, and like I joined as a cop. Like this is the first Arma server I ever played. Right. So I was shit at the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I feel like I was really good at using my resources and like.
Right.
I would like to tell people where to go and pull the hawks and the hunters. Mm-hmm. And I was one of those people that didn't mind like bottomless amounts of money.
Right.
Like I famously gave ChrisGG $20 million to go fuck up TV.
Hell yeah.
So like and then DeadPooL complained and I gave him 20 million more because DeadPooL was complaining.
That's funny.
So I was big against that whole like season where they're like, yeah, let's just make all this money. And like we were trying so hard to not let that happen. Well, I mean, like when I joined the Senior APD, like when I first got sergeant, but at the time the chief was Goat. And one thing that I don't know how big Goat was on this in the second time around because I wasn't here, but in the first time around, Goat was big on winning. The APD had to win.
Yeah, that's something that sounds familiar to me.
Yeah. And so like that was my first exposure, and almost an entire year of like my time as a sergeant and like as a lieutenant was under this idea. And so for me, like when I was chief, AP had to win. Right. Like we've like this sounds like kind of cheesy, but like there have been times in history when like the APD has definitively gone to war. Like the seniors have specifically said no. Right. Like during the DB like Fed thing, like the seniors were like, you know what, no, we're to give this our best. I think the most notorious example of this though is if you remember the Dash Gang when they were kidnapping cops. Yeah. And we got about 15 seniors and had 24 hours round the clock watching their houses. And we raided everyone in the entire gang's house in like 2 days.
Holy shit.
And got all of the cop gear back.
That's kind of crazy.
They were posting all these screenshots with like all the seniors they captured. They were being so cringy about it.
Everyone does screenshots like that now though. Everyone does that.
They started put in their forum signatures and they'd make like montages, and we're like, okay. Yeah. Like you want to flex? Okay. So we made a checklist and we went down the checklist and got everybody's house.
That's crazy.
So that was when Dante was chief, but like I remember like me, Hawk, Hylos, Stray was part of this. Like we'd be in like a little hummingbird, like a couple 1,000 meters in the air with our binos out. Looking down at people. Like I'm not big on like camping, you know. When I was chief, I actually asked my seniors to not camp gang sheds because that was the thing. They would just AFK camp gang sheds for a long time. Goat came and searched a shed for us, and it was like 50 mil. It was completely full of entirely processed moonshine.
Whose was it?
I can't even remember.
Holy shit.
This was a long time ago. It was the one that was right by the old like Hill Pyrgos Rebel.
Yeah.
And they went down there and searched that, and we were like, "Can we get a cut?" And he's like, "Yeah, like I got 50 mil. There's 3 of you. You'll each get 5 mil." And he's like, "Okay,
that's
okay, buddy." The staff had come to us when Goat was chief and was like, "Hey, so Goat was going to remove one of you because he had suspected that you were snitching to the staff about things that were happening in meetings, and he had no evidence of this. We want to remove him because he's trying to just remove random seniors for no reason."
Right.
And we were like, "Yeah, well, that could have been any of us. So, yeah, goodbye." And that was how Goat got removed. And in fairness, he was right. I'm pretty sure.
Who Goat was right?
Like, yeah, about who it was. And like it wasn't executed the right way, but it wasn't entirely Goat's fault. A lot of it also fell onto like the deputy chiefs at the time, like EatMeth. He was there. And so it just kind of was a big issue, and Rex ended up getting chief from that. And so I was there for that. Like I will say this, I respected the hell out of Goat, and I think he was one of the best chief safeties ever had, if not the best. But there's a line that you cross, and removing someone without any evidence because you suspect them of doing something,
that's not okay.
Too far.
Right.
Especially if it's a senior. Like they've worked so hard for that. Yeah. And so like at that point, that was when we were like, all right, you know what? Like it sucks. Goat's been chief for like 2 years now. Like it's happening.
Right. And what happened with Dante? He didn't get queued.
No, he right about when he got chief, he got promoted at his job in real life and had to relocate completely. Oh, so he was AFK for most of the time, and almost the entire time Outcast was the interim chief.
Right.
Well, right before he's about to retire, 2 days before he retires, he sends a text message to me and goes, "Hey, man." I was like, "Hey." He's like, "So do you want to be chief?" And I was like, "Eventually, yes." I'm a lieutenant at this time.
Right.
And there's 2 deputy chiefs. You got Plumber and Outcast. And Outcast has been interim chief forever. And I'm like, and I thought he meant deputy chief. And he's like, "Well, I'm retiring, and I honestly think that you and I share a closer vision than Outcast or Plumber does." And I was just like, "Holy shit, this is happening."
Damn,
this is a lieutenant. Crazy. Like, sometimes when you get texted by the chief, you're like, something interesting is about to happen. I hope I get Dep chief.
Yeah.
But, like, I did not expect to be like, you know, I woke up on a Saturday morning. It's like, "Hey man, I'm chief." So then I like got back that night, and I was like, "All right, I guess I'm gonna have to have a meeting now to talk about this." And a lot of people, there were people that were hyped, because there's a lot of like, because I talked about this on stream. People hated Plumber as a Dep chief.
Right.
He was a good guy, but like people just hated him because he didn't do very much work paperwork wise that was visible to everyone. He's just kind of a vet that'd been around for a while, so people would kind of trust his opinion. But so they were like kind of excited when the buzz happened and I got it.
Right.
And, like, we had this whole meeting, and I had talked to Plumber, and Plumber was like, "All right, you know what? You and I don't really get along. I'm upset I got passed over. I'm willing to offer my help in transition, and then I'm probably retired like a month from now, so it looks good for you." And I texted him back and said, "If you're going to quit, quit now."
Really?
Once we're going, we're gone.
Oh,
and
shit.
He's like, "Well, he's like, I'll give you a month or 2. I'm like, "No. If you're leaving, I want you to leave right now."
Oh, shit.
And so he's like, "All right." And so I would like stepped into the staff meeting 10 minutes, or the APD meeting 10 minutes later, and was like, "All right, Plumber's gone. Outcast is the only deputy chief." And then I promoted Hawk to deputy chief right then, because that was an obvious pick at the time.
Right. Yeah.
Because Hawk was the other candidate for chief,
right?
That Dante had considered, surprisingly, over the other 2 deputy chiefs.
Right. That's crazy.
Because people trying to get me and my seniors in trouble was one of my favorite parts of being chief. Like, I would come on every single day, and there'd be like a new clip someone had sent to me of Stray, and they're like, "Stray's DPI glitching again." Like, he's from Venezuela. His internet is awful.
Yeah, everyone knows that.
It's great, especially because it's entertaining to deal with. But, like, it also makes the senior AP like so much tighter when all these people have all these fucking issues, all these people are trying to get you.
Yeah. No doubt.
Like, I remember a time where we'd all kind of come into the APD meetings and be like, "Who almost got banned this week?"
Oh gosh,
especially around like the Aries time.
Right. Yeah.
But I remember like Hoonter in particular had a real bad habit of making medics angry. Like several times I had like people that would like Richard would like come to me and be like, "He needs to be removed right now because he did this thing," and I'd always like find some way.
Right.
That I could be like, "Nope, wasn't breaking the rules."
Right. Yeah.
Because like, and all the chiefs will tell you they don't do it, but like, there's a line where we're like, "Okay, should this be allowed? Not is this allowed, but should this be allowed?" Is how we consider a lot of things.
Right. Yeah.
There's a fair share of people that are probably still mad at me for things that I didn't remove people for.
Right.
And there's also a fair share of people that are mad at me for things I removed them for.
Who do you think holds a removal against you at this point in time?
There's a couple people that I think strongly dislike me based on things I've done to them. Outcast in particular, I can understand exactly like why it would be, but you know, unfortunately, he had to depart from Dep Chief because he was kind of given the condition to step down, take his chief perks, or go back down to LT. And that was like really hard for me because that was right as I got chief, basically.
Right.
And I actually went to like Goat and I went to Rex and without giving a name, kind of described the situation and was like, "Hey, what would you do?" And so I went back like 3 chiefs. I think I talked to Dante, Rex, and Goat and asked them all, and they all said, you gotta demote him. And I was talking to Hawk, who was the other Dep Chief at the time. Hawk's like, "Yeah, I think it's gotta be a demotion." I'm like, "Yeah, I think it does," and I hate it.
Yeah.
But like at that level, like you think you deserve a warning.
Right.
Like you think as you work your way up, you get more leniency. But like you really, when it comes to like clear rules, you really don't.
Right.
And so like I still feel bad about that one.
Right. Fair enough.
Like it had to be done.
Yeah.
Although I know DeadPooL still hates me because I refused to un-blacklist.
Right. Do you feel bad about that one?
No.
Okay. I didn't think so.
I have like every time I have like sometimes I wake up in the morning, I'll have like a nice wonderful flashback to me telling DeadPooL no.
That's pretty funny. I'm gonna have to tag him for this episode.
You're welcome to.
Okay.
In my resignation post, he commented, "Fuck you."
Okay, there you go. So
I consider that a personal victory that I was worth the time for him to click on my post, scroll all the way down, and type "fuck you."
What are some of the your favorite promotions where you were like you remember being very happy to give it to someone because you felt like they were like the one person who deserved it, or nobody deserved it as much as they did? Like,
there's a couple really good ones for that, and like not all of them turned out really well. I'll say that. Like, there were some of them that turned out awful. Oh, this is gonna be a fun one because people there's a long public history of me hating Hurricane.
Okay.
However, I don't actually hate Hurricane. I was really proud when he got Sergeant. Because back when he was at PO, he had lied about his age.
Right.
And I blacklisted him for it. But I said, I will unblacklist you as soon as you turn 16 because I think you're a good cop. And he came back and he worked his way all the way up to Sergeant.
Okay.
And I was really proud of that at the time. Although he drives me fucking nuts. It makes me want to slip my wrists sometimes.
Still to this day?
Like, I'll give you an example.
Okay.
I would consider myself a very professional cop when I play. So, like, I try and do everything, like, pretty clean.
Right.
I'm good RP.
Yeah.
And I'm outside of Pyrgos, and, like, I pull over this guy in a hand. It's, like, me and one other cop. Like, we're both wearing, like, highway patrol uniforms, walking up. We're, like, talking to him, like, excuse me, sir. You're speeding a little bit today.
Yeah.
And then, like, Hurricane rolls up, full code 3 lights and sirens, but he's in a car, like an APD car that has a glitched skin. So he's just floating. He's just transparently floating with these lights and sirens above his head. And he just gets out and goes, "Put your fucking hands in the air." And I'm just like, I swear to God. Like, you're killing the vibe, my guy. So, like, I love the kid to death, but goddamn, sometimes he's pushing me consistently.
Right, yeah.
But I know that out of the entire time, like, all the promotions I've been involved with, my absolute favorite has to be Zeuze to Corporal.
Really? Okay.
Which happened because I accidentally fell asleep at 6 p.m. one day, and woke up at, like, 1 o'clock in the morning, fully rested. And it was like, I'm ready to start my day, and then I was like, oh shit, it's 1 a.m. It was like a Saturday. So there's a whole, I think the stream, I still have the stream archive somewhere. But I basically got on and started streaming and played like 6 straight hours with just the UK guys. And it was like me, Zeuze, and one other person. And I was just like laying on the ground listening to Zeuze process someone. I'm like, this guy should be Corporal. Like, and he had just passed like maybe 15,000 minutes. And he, like, no one knew who he was. I'd never heard of him before.
Right.
And like, then Sandman, who was his lieutenant at the time, got on, and because I had texted him, I was like, "Get on right now, like, right the fuck now, get on."
Yeah.
And so he got on, like, started playing with him, and like, one of the deputies was like, standing there and had just processed someone, and we just caught another guy, and Zeuze was like, "Oh yeah, no, I want to process him, like, I want to do this," and like he sat down and like did this really great thing, and like I always love it when the POs are like want to process rather than just giving it to a deputy.
Right.
And I'm literally just texted Sandman. I'm like, this man is it. Like, within that whole morning, never heard of him before in my life, and 6 hours later, he's a corporal.
Huh. That's crazy. So that was your mother's favorite one?
That's my favorite one.
So I was watching your stream yesterday. Someone on the stream had asked you if you regretted unblacklisting Rabid, and you had answered no. You said you didn't regret it. I want to hear the story, if you're able to share what happened, what got him blacklisted, and why you decided to unblacklist him, and why you don't regret it.
There's kind of a long history that ties in a lot with what I did when Goat was chief.
Right.
But it starts with, like, he may still be upset about this, I don't know. But at one point I removed him, and as most people know, APD, we hold evidence for about 2 weeks, same as staff. Right. I removed him for a clip that was 13 days old of him quoting rules to me on Civ when I was on Cop after I was arresting him. And this was because I had received a message that basically could be interpreted as, if you can find a way to get him, get him.
Oh, okay.
And it had come from El Jefe, the man on top, at the time. And I was like, okay, well, I think I might have it.
Right.
And so at that time, he got in trouble for that. What happened as well was throughout one of his removals, and it may have been for something else, the reason he got blacklisted is because he basically was like reaching out and just fucking hating on seniors in game about like the promotion, would message us shitty stuff about his demotion or his removal, right? And like had this whole fucking negative outlook on it. And it was like, okay. So he had been quoting rules to me on Civ. I removed him. 4 days later at a Blackwire, he kills me, and then he messages me in TeamSpeak and says, "Later, retard." And I was like, what? I literally just responded, "It's whatever, LOL." And he responds, "Shouldn't have removed my PO." And I'm just like, what? And so, like, we pushed the reapply date back.
Right.
off of that
Mm-hmm.
to even later. Because I mentioned before that Goat had originally said, find a way to remove him.
Right.
And then after this, I was like, oh, well, we can find a way to push it back, too. Because he's being disrespectful. I would do it anyway. But also, yeah. And then Goat's not going to like this part, but he had put out special instructions, which he normally doesn't do, that we would accept his application, tell him he was unblacklisted, give him a test, and then at the conclusion of his test, tell him he failed and he's blacklisted again. So we were going to give him one shot, and no matter how high he scored, he was still going to fail and be blacklisted.
Holy shit. Is that what ended up happening?
That is exactly what happened.
Holy shit. Damn. He got done dirty. Not going to lie.
And then he was permed for DDoSing or something along those lines.
Yeah.
And then he appealed to come back, and he was unblacklisted. And honestly, he's done well now.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm cool with it. Like, I don't regret it.
Right.
There's very few things I do regret.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I also kind of felt bad for him a lot when he was Corporal, because he had some issues that would hold him back. And like, I played with him, and like, he seemed all right for the most part. Like, I had a lot of seniors that would say like that he had these issues.
Mm-hmm.
And I would see him occasionally. Like, I'd see these issues kind of flare up a little bit here and there. But like, I feel like some seniors blew them out of proportion.
Right.
But like, I didn't have enough good to go over all of my seniors.
Right. Yeah.
And so he was Corporal for a very long time. And
right.
I kind of feel bad about that. There's a lot. There's the whole Goat like says do this thing and then it happens. There's a lot more shady shit there.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. You probably might be familiar with Last, who was a Corporal for a long time. But there was a point where Goat really wanted Last to be Corporal. But Goat was really good friends with Last, and had just taken 20 mil from him to switch him and a bunch of people to Echo. Which was this was the original time that this happened. I know this happened a couple of times since then.
Yeah.
And so he was like, okay, I want to promote this guy to Corporal, but I can't just chief sign off on this after getting 20 mil in game.
Right.
I can't do that.
Yeah.
So he pinged me and was like, hey man, can you make this happen for me without putting my name on it?
Right.
And so then I was like me talking to, I think it was Fushigi at the time was his lieutenant, and kind of trying to push that along. We got it done. He got up there. But like, it's a lot of it was optics and just the way that things look, and there's a bunch of shady shit here and there.
Right.
But you know, it's really fun to have been a part of that, because just seeing how different APDs handle shit. Like Goat's APD was like, I think I particularly was in a position where, being lieutenant for like almost a whole year, I also kind of set myself up to do a lot of that shit. So like, that was like the things that I'd handle. It was kind of weird. I was not your traditional LT.
Right.
And then like going from that to like Rex, and Rex was straight as a fucking straight as an arrow. So there would be no shady shit. No, it was like, if it was bad optics, it just wouldn't happen.
Really? Huh.
So it was a really, really big shift. Although here's some things. So once, about a month after, not even like maybe half a month, 2 weeks after Rex got chief, I got demoted. And it's because we went to a Fed. There's a Fed going on. The bomb blew, and we chased everyone out of the Fed. No one stayed to lock up the Fed, so it was still open. And we were all out in the middle of the field fighting.
Yeah.
And I had gone from the Fed to this field, and we had shot the tires off the Hammett, killed everybody, waited, searched and seized everything. And we realized, oh shit, the Fed's unlocked. So we all went back to the Fed. And almost all of us had stayed alive. And so there was no issue here. The problem was there was one car that was at HQ that heard me say this and went, okay, let's go. And thus we merged waves and broke wave rule. Coincidentally, the person driving that car, none other than Hawk, my later Dep Chief, who I did not know was the person driving this car for the longest fucking time. Because when Rex explained this to me and demoted me for this, I didn't understand what was wrong, because I didn't see the car on the map. So I just figured that like, I was trying to defend myself, like, oh, I lived from the Fed, I went to the field, I should be able to go back. So I was making this whole elaborate argument about how I shouldn't be demoted, but that wasn't the issue. The issue was the other car. I didn't figure that out till like 3 months after.
Oh shit.
And so at that time I was already sergeant for a while, and so that was a really interesting dynamic.
That's kind of, I feel like that's a bullshit reason to get demoted, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean,
because your intent wasn't to like
talked about it, and like had I made the argument that like I make now, knowing of what happened, that like I didn't want them to come with me, I would have been fine. It's just I didn't make that argument because I didn't understand what was going on at the time, and that's not Rex's fault. It's not my fault. It's just like
miscommunication.
Circumstance.
Yeah.
People used to laugh because whenever I would blacklist some people, I would write on the blacklist never to be blacklisted until the day that I die. Like. Because like there's people that like did some shit that I'm just like no, never again.
That's funny. So now could they be? You think?
I mean, I'm sure now they'll probably overturn them because I personally overturned one of them. I think there's like 5 of them.
Okay, that's not too many.
Blatantly tried to lie to me, and one of my favorite ones was on an APD app.
Right.
People will like go out and they'll look up like driver's license, whatever, and like do driver's license and like black out all the information and send it in and be like, look, it's just my age.
Right. Yeah.
And so a lot of times I would go and I would find. Those sample ones because I was really good at it.
Right. Yeah.
And one of the IDs, the example one actually, like the person's name was like Janice Sample, right? And in this guy's
last name Sample.
Yeah, and but he had blacked all the information, but I found the actual clear copy.
Right.
I could tell that everything matched.
Yeah.
And so I replied to his app, and I was like, listen, I'm a firm believer in self-determination. If you push yourself, you can do whatever you want. You can believe in yourself. You can be your own man. You can be whoever you want to be, except Janice Sample. You can't be her. And then I linked to the ID and was just like, you're blacklisted. And for some odd reason, I remember that one above all the others.
So you said you don't regret it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
What do you regret?
So I was actually just thinking about mentioning this. One of the things that I do definitely regret is I mentioned before that like when Goat was around, I was that guy who like did that stuff. And so one of the things that I was known for is I wrote almost all the tests for the APD. I'm sure they're all different now, but I wrote almost all of them.
Right.
Like
at that
everyone,
point,
when a sergeant comes on, they write their own deputy test. I had written all 3 PO tests, 2 of the 3 corporal tests, and we had like a sergeant reeval test that we just floated around that I had written as well. So like basically all of it was me because I enjoy making people suffer. And Rex had come to me one day and was like, hey, we're going to do corporal reevaluations. And I want you to write a test for me. And I was like, okay, well, what kind of test? And his words, and I'm directly quoting here, I would like 50% of qualified candidates to fail. And I was like, okay. And the idea behind this was like, oh, well, if we have someone who's qualified, we want to give them this test the first time.
Right.
Because if you fail your first corporal test, you get another one in a week. Right. And so we want you to fail. So you study so fucking hard. And then your second test, you blow it away and are a great corporal.
Right. Yeah.
The problem with this is he drastically underestimated the effects of having a corporal test with a 50% pass rate amongst qualified candidates.
Right.
What came out of this was Packet 4. And Packet 4 is notorious. And I'm sure when I say Packet 4, that there's about 6 people out there who are crying in the club right now, including Hoonter, Thor, and like almost nerdy guy, who Hoonter and Thor both lost their corporal ranks to this.
Oh shit! No
like
way.
Full out demoted to PO because they couldn't pass this test. And like we reprised this test like for a sergeant reevals, and we almost lost sergeants to this thing. Holy it was entirely gray areas. Entirely. The entire test was like each paragraph, like each question was like a paragraph. And I'd catch people on like the tiniest shit.
Do you think Packet 4 is still in commission at this time?
I hope not. Some people like fucking flew through it. Like Civak aced it.
Really?
Which I big props to him for that. But like Myers B or Grego, Hoonter and Thor both failed. It was just rough. So I killed a lot of careers in that moment. Really? I get a lot of flack for that, but I would like to remind everyone that I was told to create this by the chief of police.
Really? So this is your biggest regret?
That's probably my biggest. That's one of my biggest regrets. One of probably like 2.
What's the other one?
The other one is technically it's kind of a string of decisions. Which was when I left. Which is one, I shouldn't have let Hawk retire because when I told Hawk I was retiring, Hawk went, well, fuck that, I'm leaving too.
Right.
Which I shouldn't have let happen because Hawk would have been a great chief. But also, I made ChrisGG a deputy chief because I felt like that was what everyone wanted. When in fact, I think Nerdy was really passed over a lot early. And then like I had a lot of good options. And what I should have done is waited a little longer and then picked either like Nerdy or like Hylos or something like that.
Right.
but I left too much up in the air and ended up like picking him for deputy chief and then leaving too soon where nothing got settled.
Right.
And that kind of fucked up everything. But I had gotten a text from Nerdy that was like, hey man, you should help me coup ChrisGG. And like I gave him some advice on how to do it. And like I was not the one who came up with this idea.
Right.
But like Nerdy was like, I want to do this. I talked to Ryan. Ryan says he's okay with it. How should we go about this? You're the one who's done this before. Because and so coming back, like I haven't touched the server in forever.
Right.
And they're like, okay, we want to coup Chris. And so I gave advice. I was like, make sure you got everybody together. Make sure you have the consensus vote going in. You're going to win. Maybe only 2 people will say no. If you have more people going to say no than that, you need to convince them one by one, and you need to make this happen.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, my advice was not followed. They had a meeting with about 3/4 of the people. They're missing some people who had to like vote by proxy through Snapchat or whatever. And then also you had a deputy chief who didn't agree, which is not good. Because then logically the next in line is Sandman, the deputy chief, who didn't agree.
Oh no.
And so now you have a split APD where half the people want Chris as chief, the other half the people don't. And so now that Chris is gone, you've already made half of the people angry. Half the people that started the coup now want Sandman as chief, and the other half want Nerdy. So now you've got like 3 factions on the APD.
Right.
And they all hate each other.
Oh no.
And so Sandman inherits this APD that is crippled and broken.
Right.
Where there's nothing that like you could have been like Goat and I put together and you would not have survived that situation.
Right.
Like you could have had like my ethics put together with like Goat's operations and like all the stuff that he did that was like so good to keep the APD together. Fucking still would have been cool. Like
really,
Sandman he was so fucked
from the beginning.
Yeah, it was over before it started.
So this is the first time that we're going to do this on an episode, and it's something that I want to do in the future because I want to be sure to involve the community as a whole more often in this kind of thing. I asked the community 10 hours ago what they would like to ask you, and we will go from top to bottom. So Bucky would like to know, what was Bucky's influence on the APD while you were active as a senior?
See, the funny thing is Bucky thinks this is a joke.
Okay.
However, Bucky actually did kind of influence me in some ways because coming from support team originally, I had to deal with Bucky a lot.
Right.
Deal with Bucky, BDJ, a whole bunch of guys like that. And he's going to hate that I just put looped him with BDJ. But they'd come to me, they'd bother me all the time.
Right,
and like, it was a good experience before being chief to do that because when you're chief, everyone wants to talk to you about all of their issues.
Right.
Like just it's an underappreciated skill to just sit there and listen to them. And so Bucky had an influence on me in my life.
Right.
Shout out to Bucky, who changed my life. Like giving me more patience and conversation.
Vigi Easy Money wants to know, what's a good way to quit the server?
Go out with honor. Just tell people just put up a post, say I'm done, and leave.
That's it.
Don't do the Dominic Ramos shit.
Jig wants to know, why did Pledge deny my age exceptions? I was accepted by Chris.
I had probably like 30 some applications for age exception. I granted 4 of them.
Okay.
I granted 1 to Kale, 1 to Mason Harrison, who went on to do good things. I was really, really tight about it because I wanted to have this feeling that like if you were on the APD underage, you knew what you were doing, because I actually like had known a lot of people that were underage when I was a PO. And I want to make sure that the reputation of like someone being underage was still a good one. And so I had to like actually know you. And I played a lot, so that wasn't hard, but like, at the time I just, especially towards the end, it got harder for me, which is why I kind of stopped doing those. Right.
Fair enough. Airborne wants to know, why do you think you were promoted to chief over Outcast?
Dante told me that Outcast kind of had a different vision, whereas Dante was much more of like Dante, I think I heard a lot of his respect because he was a very people-oriented chief, much like I was, where he would be willing to sit in a channel and discuss a whole bunch of random shit with people for forever. Like if you were a Civ and you had a problem with the APD, I would sit in a channel with you and talk for like hours. Right. And like Outcast wasn't that way. And Dante and I used to go famously on the forums, would just take on the world and APD arguments. And so like him and I think related a lot on that. I think he was very into the concept of like having an open APD. So by giving it to me, he's like, oh, maybe he can be the chief that I wasn't able to be because I was busy in real life.
Right. Okay.
And then at the end of my chiefship, he messaged me and was like, you did not at all do what I intended, but it was still a good decision.
There you go.
Thanks, man.
I'm glad. As long as you're proud of me.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Fair enough. That nerdy guy wants to know, how many more games will Carson Wentz play before getting hurt?
I'm an Eagles fan. I believe in Carson Wentz. I'm going to put the odds at 3. 3 more games. 3 games. All right. Then we'll make the 4th consecutive injury season.
KGB Josh wants to know, what is your net income off of selling Corporal promotions?
Never actually sold promotions, but fun fact, if you stream when you're chief, you make mad money. Like, people be giving you... Panda donated me like $20 when he was a corporal.
Oh, shit.
People be trying to like subtly bribe you.
Did he get sergeant after that?
I eventually, but not.
Right. You couldn't do it too close, though. You know.
Yeah. No. Of course. Don't want the suspicion. And then there is a clip of KGB Josh himself donating me bits on my stream when I was a lieutenant. I was like, guess he gets corporal now. So I'm sure that's gonna arrive somewhere in the comments.
Right. It's possible.
Yeah.
That's funny. Hurricane wants to know, how did you react when he got sergeant?
Yeah. So I was in Italy at the time. Then Hawk was temporary chief, and I think he promoted Panda and Hurricane to be sergeants.
Right.
Both of them think that I didn't approve
of either one of their promotions.
What they don't realize is that like Hawk texted me their names and was like, "These are the candidates. Who are you okay with?"
Right.
And I was like, "Oh, I'm okay with these guys." Like,
yeah,
I'm completely fine. Like, I'll admit, I didn't know Panda as well, but like the other thing was when Panda was, what's the fucking word for it? FTO.
Yeah.
Which is a thing that I invented working with my least favorite cop of all time, Gunhand, and Queen, who drove me up the fucking wall. They had some good ideas. They came up with the idea, and then I implemented it.
Really? Huh?
Yeah. Just sat in a channel for 3 hours talking to Gunhand and wanted to kill myself.
I'll have to add him.
No, please.
I'm doing it. Like,
you can put it in here, but don't add him.
I'm going to.
Okay. Well, it was a great idea, and he's a cop in real life, so he has some good experience.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
It's a real life thing, the FTOs, but
right, yeah.
It's one of those things like, it is a game, so there's some things we can't do.
Venom said something about Project 83.
This is really interesting. I had something when I was chief called Project 83 where people could submit a feedback request to get feedback on how they were doing. This was my attempt at playing 4D chess as chief. Because I thought to myself, well, what's the best way to get better corporal promotions? It's like, well, you want the officers, like the POs, to improve, and you want the seniors to be able to play with the officers. I was like, okay, so how can I find a way to do both? And so then I was like, well, we can give the actual POs feedback, because they'll ask for feedback all the time, and we'll never have good feedback from them ever. Because you go into a meeting and be like, this person wants feedback. And everyone would be like, he doesn't play enough. And you'd be like, he has 25 hours this week. You'd be like, oh. Like, no one knew what the fuck they were talking about.
Right.
It's like, we need to track this somehow.
Yeah.
And so I just created like the click the new spreadsheet button on like, the APD sheets. And it popped up, and it was like, new sheet 83. And I was like, Project 83, it's happening now.
Oh, okay, that's funny.
So I literally just like had a list of all the POs that had 10,000 minutes, and was like, all right, everybody go like write comments on these people.
Right.
And then I was like, okay, so now that we've done that, like, now I try to keep my seniors out of private channels. I asked them to not play in private channels.
Right.
So basically, my whole point of this was I was going to try and get as much information about all of the people as humanly possible.
Right.
Because when I was in LT, I knew people in my squad, which led to people like Astral and Stray getting promoted who had billions and billions of minutes. But like no one ever saw them because they played odd hours.
Right.
And I was like, these persons logging mad time. I got to find a way to play with this guy.
Yeah.
And so like just by doing this, this is my ploy to kind of push the senior APD to play with these people. I think it worked pretty well. Although as soon as I stepped down, Chris got rid of it because it was a lot of work to get all this information on these people.
Do you think Project 83 is something that could get revived at some point in the future?
I think it's possible. I think it's hard. And you really have to have a certain kind of attitude and a certain kind of understanding of all the people that are on the APD to pull that off.
Right.
So if it was going to happen, it hopefully could happen better than I did it. Because when I did it, it was like not as good as it could have been.
Right.
Because it was just kind of rushed and thrown together. But
yeah. All right. And then Headless.
Yeah. I see that. That's beautiful.
Do you want to comment on? Maybe I'll show it when I'm editing.
You have outstanding editing skills, Headless. Thank you. Thank you for your contribution to society. Also, I look really young in that photo.
Sivak wants to know, why do you physically look away from your computer when somebody throws a flashbang in CSGO? Why do you physically look away?
I, fun fact, have really bad eyes. And also, because of this, I used to play a lot of Counter-Strike. So I have the digital vibrance, for those of you that know about monitors, on my monitor all the way up, which means all of my colors are very, very bright. I also have the brightness on my monitor all the way up. So my brightness is very high. I also, when I play games, sit like this in my computer. And so the flashbang is physically bright and hurts my eyes.
Right. Okay.
And so, like, there's a clip of me on my stream where someone threw a flashbang, and I went, nope, and, like, looked to the left, and also looked in-game to the left. And it's like, it has, like, a couple thousand views.
That is so funny.
And it is funny looking, but, you know, if you watch the clip, you can also see, like, you could see the flash on my face. I'm really pale, so, like, it has to be really white.
Right, yeah. That's hilarious.
Like, yeah.
Why did you accept a 13-year-old into the APD? And who was it? Was it Kale?
It was Kale.
Okay. Why him?
Because I talked to him. He seemed like a really nice guy. I ran into him with Civ, and he seemed like a really nice guy. And I figured, why not give him a shot? I felt generous.
Bill Droid wants to know what you're studying in college.
I am a computer science major, so I do computer science and specialty in algorithms. And a minor in data science.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
That sounds like very nerdy.
Yeah, no, it is.
Billy wants to know why the fuck you gave him Corporal.
See, that's an easy one. Everyone deserves a shot if they show they know the rules and put in the effort. Right. And I feel like he did that. One thing I will say is, like, especially to, like, Billy and people that were wondering, like, why they got Corporal. I put this at the end of my my resignation post when I retired from Chief. Right. Is that, like, it's a quote from JFK where he's addressing Yale University, because I'm a nerd, as I've been over this. Right. And it's, you know, we enjoy the comfort of opinion without the discomfort of thought. And there's a lot of people that are like, oh, I have this opinion about this thing, but I don't want to think about it. I don't want to consider it. And, like, a lot of the APD was like that when I got there, where it was like, we don't know this person, so we're not giving them Corporal. Right. And it's shit. It's like, if you're me and you come in and you know no one on the server and you join the APD, you're fucked. The only reason I am where I am today is because of Gibbs, who is an OG, who gave me my PO test when I was a deputy, who gave me my corporal test and vouched for me. Right. It literally was told by the lieutenant who gave it to me. And Gibbs was a sergeant, so he couldn't give it to me. Right. I was told, you better pass this test. Gibbs stuck his neck out for you. If you fail this, it's on him. Oh, really? And then, you know, after that, like, when I got sergeant, Gibbs lobbied for me too. Like, my entire career is owed to this man. That's crazy. So, like, you know, my closing words on my post were, you know, give people a chance. Right. Just because you don't like someone doesn't mean that they don't deserve a promotion. I do want to ask you a question. Okay. Yeah. Which is, I want to hear a little bit about, because I know recently you had some unfortunate circumstances before you that I can kind of relate to. Right. Since, you know, back in my day, I joined the staff the first time. And although I was told that they later regret asking me this question because it was more broad than this, you know, I was asking, are you lieutenant first, do you APD first, do you staff first? Right. And I was like, okay, well, I'm lieutenant first. And then I was told that I can't have that, and I got kicked off the staff. But I also had done some other things. So, you know, I kind of have a unique position to ask you from kind of what's going on with what happened to you recently. Okay, I'm assuming the staff removal. I mean, that's the first thing. So, I mean, if you don't want to talk. No, I'll talk about it. All right, so it is removal. Like I have retired perks, and I'm not blacklisted indefinitely from the staff team. But I was removed. I did not retire. I did not step down. It was all in-game stuff. So I was given a few examples of why, and all of the examples were in-game stuff. I was not given any examples about tickets or bans or anything like that. It was all in-game instances in which one of them, which was abuse, for sure, and I admitted that, you know, and that situation was made public by Rabid, so most people actually know about that on the, you know, through the forums.
And that was the first time. That was my first week as a mod 2. And then past that, it was just little shit that built up, you know, little oversights in which I definitely could have handled the situation better. You know, I don't hold it against anybody, and we'll just see how the cards fall in the future. You know?
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like a good outlook. Sounds like you're doing all right with that. So I don't really have anything else to say. I mean,
plug your stream, man. When's the next time? When's your stream? What's your stream schedule?
I don't know when the next time I'll be streaming is, but if you ever see me drop a link up there in the status updates, you go check it out. I just have tons of Olympus drama to rant about.
Heck yeah.
Also, I'm just saying, much as I hate to say it, Rex, I'm a better streamer than you, man. I don't even stream. I've streamed one time in like 3 months, but it was a higher quality stream than any stream we've ever had.
Oh, yikes. Awesome. Well, you have a good night, and thanks for coming on, and I will let you know once I have the version for you to look at.
All right. Look forward to it. Have a good night, man.
Peace.
See you.